Ancestors, we stand in need of sacred relationships. We pray for sacred relationships in our lives. First, may we create a sacred relationship with you and with our parents, children, sisters, brothers, friends, associates, co-workers, teachers, students, with nature, and with all of our relations. Ancestors, help us to attract and establish harmonious, wholesome, and healthy relationships. Help us to unblock and release old hurt feelings, resentments, and hostility that are trapped within our body temple. Help us to have the vision and the strength to learn from all of our relationships, as they are our reflection, each and every one. If by chance our relationships do not change, may we remain unfazed and on point. May we be the one to create new links of change and transformation for our ancestors, our descendants, and ourselves, for all healing really begins within us. We affirm that each one of our relationships has value and in some way has forced or helped us to grow into a more sacred relationship with ourselves. As we reflect on the true purpose and sacredness of relationships, we give thanks to the divine in us and the divine in all others. Ashe. I am a sacred woman. 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 For our sacred movement today, I figured we would continue listening to the Sacred Woman CD. This song I'm playing today is called Dance of the Womb, and I thought we would just intuitively kind of move. We would start on our feet and then move into the best position, which is, I think it's like cat-cow or, and move intuitively there as well, and just kind of listen to the words, feel our bodies, and definitely do what your body says. If it is just sit down and listen, or if it's to move with wild abandon, definitely listen to your body, listen to your womb, and enjoy the message that this song brings.
I rebirth myself into existence through spirit, breath, sun, water, and roots. For the great mother dwells within me. I open up my lotus petals of Neferatum, causing one inner beauty and harmony. Born out of my seat, I reflect my womb destiny, causing me to ascend into the mother healer, the great womb purge, allowing my ocean to wash and render my womb clean. I'm just like a bridge over troubled waters. I'm clearing the tide of womb calamity. So I press on and up, leading me to the altar of peace and tranquility.
I climb this mountain to where my womb power may be recharged and fulfilled. My womb is unlimited. She transforms into a soothing, cooling waterfall that allows my waters to flush and baptize me, leaving my womb fresh like a lotus garden. I surrender. I offer myself to the great Mother Ta'ert to save me from womb catastrophe. Mama, won't you take me in and keep me safe from harm and life's dangerous crossroads?
I, the cobra, rise up the spine from the womb, the seat of serpent power, of enlightening fire, to reach the heights, to the all-knowing I and I, opening myself up to Shai, destiny. I take on the challenge through Meshkinet of birthing myself again and again, releasing and learning from the pain of my lessons, great Mother Newt of the day and night, sky of illumination. I go into you and come out filled with light, as only you can place me into the seat of Ast, the mother of healing and nurturing. Upon this rock I sit in this seat and shall not be moved.
I am Bast, the cat of art and creativity. I will create you a renewed Ka'at, womb filled with energy. Come, Bess, dance with me. Come breathe through me. I will open you up to a softness and an inner grace that will set your soul free. I am the moon. Welcome home. Sit down with me and glow. I rule the moon of your emotion. I live in the tide of your womb. Become one with me, and I will give you harmony.
My womb is like sun, Ra, expansive, powerful, and radiant. And like the sun, my womb shines and shines and shines. She is free of all dis-ease. I give praise to the divine because my soul has a shine.
I rotate my hips to the four directions, east, west, north, and south, newt, sky, geb, earth, shu, atmosphere, and tefnut, moisture, womb reaching every good and glorious part of me, creating a new world, a higher calling, a pure humanity. That's what my womb is creating so perfectly. Dancing the dance of the womb, causing Sekhmet, fire, the flames, to activate a global world healing through my womb's emancipation. My dance helps me to join with my enlightened self as I rest in my ancestral pyramid of higher wisdom, causing me to have dominion over the heavens and the earth.
And after a long journey of womb wisdom, in motion through the sacred dance of the womb, and after the sun of my womb has set, I return to yet another womb rebirth, where my soul takes me to an inner womb reflection, a given into the depths of my womb transformation.
As I sit at the light of my womb altar, being a dancer of the womb, I contemplate dance of the womb, lifting me up like you, a sphinx, causing me to fly like Heru, a falcon, as I give thanks and praises for seeing me through, pulling me up and out of spiritual calamity, rendering me complete womb peace and serenity.
So our Adinkra card for today's study is Nayami Bibi Wo Saro, which means God is in the heavens. It is a symbol of hope and a reminder that God's dwelling place is in heaven, where he can listen to all prayers. This is a reminder that you are not... this is my card.
This is my mommy cow? What a shabudi.
It's a fig.
Whoa. You coming shabudi. Open it up, baby boy.
It's a fig. We'll eat some later. We'll find some to eat later. So it's a reminder that you are not alone. And with the guidance and care of your ancestors and God and your spirit guides, you can accomplish anything. Also a reminder that you are not forgotten, to activate your support systems, and to give your troubles to your ancestors, to rely on your spiritual foundation for strength and support when you need it, to ask for help when you need it, to remember to pray and utilize this wonderful gift you've been given, called the ancestors, called your gods and goddesses, whoever it is that you work with, whatever your traditional practice is. Our law to study from the 42 laws of Ma'at is I will not waste water. I think this is a very powerful law because it reminds us about our connection to nature. I see. It reminds us of our connection to nature, which a lot of people right now, as I record this, it's a very hypersensitive topic because people are looking at the Amazon and the intentional burning of the forests, the lungs of the earth, for cattle farming to meet a demand that is also very real. Essentially, a lot of people are being kind of jolted when things like this happen. They get jolted into a feeling of needing to connect to nature, wherein it should be something that we participate in all the time. It should be part of our lifestyle to not waste the resources, to honor them for what they are and to utilize them correctly. And from a moral standpoint, we see the reasoning why. Everybody benefits from the nature, so when you start overusing it or brutalizing it, tearing it down, destroying it, you are destroying knowledge and resources that all of humanity benefits from. And you're also, when you're overusing things for yourself, for your own personal gain, obviously the moral repercussions of someone owning resources, of someone hoarding resources, has been seen, especially in capitalist societies. The issues, with poverty, classism. Hundreds of years ago in Europe, they had feudalism. No one else was really like that, but they definitely had that. And so it's an issue that has definitely carried on into the modern day, sadly. And remembering not to waste water, I think, is a very poignant reminder about that connection with nature, and that we are nature, and that we are water, and that this is a connection that we all have together. So for today's chop, I thought I would do something that I haven't done in a minute for on this channel. I feel like I did it once and then didn't do it again. So I thought we would do a little bibliomancy. I brought out my copy of The Art of War. I love this book for bibliomancy. Okay, so first for bibliomancy, just because I feel like we haven't really talked too much about it. Bibliomancy is a form of divination where you use a book. So it's like, instead of tarot cards, which are all separate pieces of paper, it's all bound together. My favorite books to use this for, I've done this a few times, is with the Dust to Onyx guidebook. I love that one, and I also love to use The Art of War because it has a lot of really good information, especially sentence-wise, if you're somebody who likes to open and see a phrase, an idea. This is a really good book for that. Other ways people do divination with bibliomancy is to point at different letters, different words, write down all the words that they have pointed to, and make some kind of full thought or idea from that, and or from the letters that they see. So there's different symbolism people can use. Some people use books with pictures, all sorts of stuff. So, but I think that this is a really good one, partially because it's so accessible, and it's full of such good information, and yeah, I think it's a really good one. So we're gonna hope I don't totally, embarrass myself by turning to a page and seeing something that I don't, I can't explain. Something so crazy. But anyways, yeah, let me smoke this chop. I have like one that my husband started and then didn't finish last night. Like last night I was super tired. I went to bed early and my husband's like, "Oh yeah, no problem, blah blah blah." He tucks me in or whatever. I'm like, my kids are in their room, whatever. I wake up at 4 and he's decided to pull a random all-nighter. My kids are asleep on the couch. He let them out and was like, "You guys can just watch a movie. Oh, you're quiet. You can watch another movie." Of course they were quiet. It's like 10 o'clock at night. So they basically just fell asleep on the couch out there. Who knows what hour. And yeah, and who knows when he smoked this chop. So that was the situation I ran into this morning. It was pretty funny. But I was like, whatever, like I woke up all refreshed. So I was like, well, tuck in the kids, I guess, and like hang out with my husband before he goes to work. But thank goodness it's Friday as I'm recording this. So he only has to make it through today and have a good weekend. So here I am. Oh, and I'm wearing my Witch Bay shirt today. Witch Bay. I think it's like witchbay.com. I don't know. But my friend Imani designed these t-shirts, and some other things are on her site too. That's like my favorite shirt. Let's see. That's a big ass chop. It was late because who packs a big ass chop like that for themselves? Okay, I like spit. Should get a tissue. I'm so happy I can breathe, y'all. I was caught up with my sinuses for like a full week, and finally these last few days I'm able to breathe and taste. It's amazing. It's amazing. Wish I'd had my breath of light. Order some of that from Queen Afua. Some that open up the senses. Alright, so I guess I'll just explain. I've seen people do various methods with their bibliomancy, but I kind of, I have my connection with my books, and I just kind of like to feel the pages and feel them beneath my fingers and choose from there. I'm sure there are other methods that perhaps have more feel to them or get a little fancier, but I just like to feel the book and really get into the rhythm with it. Alright, we're on chapter 7, and my eyes fell on the lower part of the 15th, I don't know what they'd be called in here, verse. 15 and 16 were kind of, and 17 were kind of on my eye, this section right here. And the words that popped out to me first was, "Move only if there is a real advantage to be gained." That is the lower half of 15. And then it moves on, so I'm not going to read the beginning part of 15 because I think it kind of takes away from the message that I read when I read these 3 sentences together. So it says, "Move only if there's a real advantage to be gained. Whether to concentrate or to divide your troops must be decided by circumstances. Let your rapidity be that of the wind, your compactness, that of the forest, in raiding and plundering be like fire, in immovability like a mountain. So I went ahead and read the rest of 17 because I felt where that was going. I thought that was a really powerful statement. So move only if there is real advantage to be gained. I think that really speaks to moving wisely instead of, or working smart, instead of hard. They always say that. They always say, don't do that. Don't just be overworking yourself. Don't just be doing too much for the sake of doing too much. This is something that I had to learn, especially as in my earlier 20s. My husband taught me this lesson because he was just like, you like, you're always trying to be busy, and like a lot of what you do for these other people, they're not even like taking note of. Like, you could have just saved your energy. And it took time for me to realize that, and like also to learn the art of relaxing. I was just like, I think also like being in my youth, I was like kind of trained to be like trying to keep myself busy with things. So even if it was a leisure activity, it had to be like a leisure activity that gave some kind of profit or gain of some way. And I really took that attitude into my adulthood, so that it came to where I couldn't just enjoy hobbies, couldn't just relax, felt like I had to mitigate like things that I was having fun with other things, and or like kind of in a way punish myself. And so I think that it is wise to relax when it's not time to move, and to wait until there is advantage to be gained to do certain things, to make certain moves, because you could be just wasting your time, wasting your resources. Sometimes it is necessary to practice. Sometimes it is necessary to put yourself into stuff, but there is a lot of times where people are just kind of moving. Sometimes it's because they're antsy. They're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Let me just do it. Let me just go for it. I've done that before many, many times, where I moved too soon. And like, I think intuitively recognizing when it's time to move, being able to trust yourself, and then having the discipline to actually be patient, having the discipline to actually wait until it's time to move, and then move when it's time to move. That can be very difficult. That's something that you have to practice at over the years. And then also practicing at trusting your intuition is something that takes people's time for years. That takes a long time for some people. Other people, they're just used to trusting their intuition. And then some of us, we're used to trusting our intuition in certain areas, and we're used to delegating it off, or just kind of leaving it to the wind, or what have you, for other things that we're not as comfortable with. But it is important to be able to be intuitive about all the things that I think that have to do with yourself. And if you're not, if the situation is too personal for you to remain in your center, to remain objective about, that's why it's so important to have people that you trust to do your readings. Have people that you trust to do your readings. I think that part is just absolutely important. And that can take a long time too. Don't just be out there just getting readings from people just because people say you need a reading. I'm a firm believer that you need to be focused on intuition. So for me, when it comes to getting readings from people, I've had to be, even when it's like a super popular person, I have struggles with this. Like, sometimes you'll see a super popular person, they're posting all types of testimonials, other people, everyone's on their jock, everybody's posting testimonials, blah, blah, blah. And like, you, in your heart of hearts, just know that it may not even be that person's a bad person, right? It may not even be that. For me, there's been like a few of those people. For example, and this is a perfect example of somebody who I don't think is a bad person, but for me, when I just read their energy, saw their situation, everything, I was like, that is not for me. So the Trap Witch, I think is her name. She's just an Instagram personality. I want to say she calls herself like the tarot Oprah, the Hood Oprah, I don't even know, it's something like that. But she was somebody who was all up in our faces. I want to say like a year or two ago. That's why I feel comfortable saying, because she's very solid in her place, and it's not me talking shit. She's not just somebody up and coming. That was her a couple years ago. That everybody was talking about, everybody was sharing her stuff, and everybody was super into her things. And that was an example of me having to recognize when I was just kind of being pulled into the hype, and I was like, oh, like, I didn't really feel her like that. Like I felt like she knew like what she was doing, or I felt like she was initiated. I felt like she, when the advice she's giving is valid, and it's advice a lot of people need, and will resonate with a lot of people. But was it for me? And I think being able to not get sucked into paying for something from somebody that you didn't necessarily trust, not get sucked into even following people, you know what I mean? I had to, when I realized that for myself, that's when I was able to like let go of being so upset about people not wanting to follow me, follow back, all that like weird stuff, which meant a lot more to me back when I way long before Spiritual Black Girls, a couple years before Spiritual Black Girls, that stuff meant a lot to me, because I saw followers as like money, and then also as friends. I would take it personally, like it wasn't even about the money. It was like, did they not like me? Did they think I'm inauthentic? Blah blah blah. But I mean, at the end of the day, the social media aspect of it is one presentation. It is giving off a certain type of energy, and that energy is not going to resonate with everybody. So recognizing that it's not always for you. For example, my page, Spiritual Black Girls, that one I'm the least offended when somebody does not follow me, especially one of my closer friends on on Facebook. I'm like, of course you're not following me. You're deep in the throes of like some deeper spirituality. For me, Spiritual Black Girls has really become a page that's almost like an altar. It's a place where I place things that are sacred to me, that keep me inspired, keep me remembering what it's about, keep me on that track with my family, inspire me. I can scroll through and remember all these things and see all these things and remember what I should be doing in my house, like when I'm feeling so uninspired. And so that's what it's about. But not everybody needs that. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same with like, my other things, womb readings. Not everybody needs that. And not everybody is going to want my energy reading their womb. Maybe they have very specific needs. Maybe they have been through something with somebody who looked like me, or somebody who acts like I do, talks like I do. Maybe they need somebody who does talk a different way, that connects with them in a different way. So I think that intuitive understanding of your life, and then also having somebody in your life that you can trust to have those intuitive readings, because that's what I was getting at. Was then recently I've been able to see people I've known for a long time in the internet realm through different eyes, that allowed me to, my nose is like all running and stuff because it's been a while, y'all. But I was like, I could feel it coming, y'all. But these are people that I have known for a long time, but I wasn't sure yet, my energy. Some people I'm able to like see their energy, and it's kind of off to me, and I hem and I haw, and like, there's other people, like there's a popular, I see this often with the male practitioners. There's at this time there's only one male practitioner who I thoroughly recommend. That's Medicine Man, Swamp Water Roots. I think he goes by his Instagram changed. It's like God something. If you message me on Instagram, don't message me on Instagram on Spiritual Black Girls. I will never respond. It is terrible. Godcraft, Black Godcraft. Anyways, you can find him. Charles Mason is also what he goes by on Facebook. He has a very good YouTube channel where he goes live all the times. He does that real East Coast Carolina hoodoo, and and this may be because he has a woman in his life and children and a life that he maintains, a family life, and he's actually connected to his community, you know what I mean? He's only kind of been on these internet streets for like 3 or so years going hard. So his life has not been on the internet trying to get followers, that type of thing. He's just that real authentic energy. So he's not trying to hook up with people, use people's sexual energy. He doesn't have that immaturity of I don't know. Us in our 20s. It's funny. I'm sure it is that way with within people's age groups. But how is this? How us, whatever you are, you typically don't fuck with the generation that's younger than you, those generations younger than you, because it's beneath you now. You know what I mean? Above you now. Now that I don't even know what we're talking about. But for real, I wouldn't beef with a 22-year-old, just because at this time I know she and I are going through such different things, or he and I are going through such different things. It just wouldn't be worth it to me. It's like, what would we be beefing about? And so I have noticed with some of the younger practitioners, there is that tendency towards this video is taking, look at me, I'm like adding on to this video. What am I doing? Anyways, so but there's like, but this is serious. Like, it's really difficult to be reading people and to really understand. And I see people like younger practitioners, they'll be like talking shit. They'll be like posting messages that are like or posts that are like kind of just so specific that you're like, somebody out there knows you're talking about them. That was somebody's reading. One time a practitioner who I don't follow anymore, but I still, I have to respect where they are in the community. And, that's that politics. Once you get up there, that's what I'm starting to learn about stuff, is you can't just be like so cut and dry. Well, that I don't follow this person, I don't follow that person. You can do that when you're nobody, but then like once you start getting followers and start connecting with people, it starts to get really muddy. So anyways, one time though, that person posted something like, oh yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't tell people, like if they're not ready for it, I won't tell them, even if they've, like, people who've paid for a reading. And like, that was like, for me, it was like, whoa, ding ding, like I already had my intuition, like you shouldn't get a reading from that person. But then that was like the double confirmation, like, oh, okay, like that's why you need to be following your intuition. That's why, don't be just spending your money on things just because other people are spending their money. Because like, okay, yeah, what if you are that person that they respect? What if you, and then you get that good full reading. But then what if you are that person that, for whatever, and they're never going to tell you, you know what I mean? You're just going to have to be intuitive yourself, maybe do the pendulum reading and trust your own energy that they've told you the truth or not. And if you're somebody who has been kind of twinkled by their, glamour, is kind of, I think this person has a bit of a glamour thing going on. If you're somebody who has that, then are you even able to actually intuitively know if they are telling you everything that you need to know? And then what's the point of even paying $80, $100+ for a reading if you got to do all that? You know what I mean? And so for me, it's been cool. I've been able to really find people who are very trustworthy to me, who are people who I can feel like, even if it's something so personal as my marriage, you know what I'm saying? And that's a difficult one. And that's one that I do need, because as you guys know, as I've mentioned before, my husband's mother passed on very early from lupus several years ago. She was only in her early 40s. And I am adopted. My adoptive family, highly dysfunctional and torn apart. My birth family, highly dysfunctional, and I just don't know them very well, but also torn apart. So my husband and I don't have elders, and that would have helped us so many times in our life, especially when we first had kids. Oof. If we had just had some people to talk to back then, if I had been able to trust people then the way I trust people now, you know what I'm saying? That was back then. That was like the beginning of my Queen Afua journey. I guess I'd already tried to do Queen Afua before then, but that was the beginning of my actual journey through the gateways with Queen, doing her sacred woman journey with her and others on that level, and really committing on that physical level with a group of people. But it would have been so helpful if I'd had that then. But it did take me years to, through building connections, through viewing people, through listening to them, through seeing what they post, what they think about. Some of these people I've had to follow on Facebook for years, and, over the years I've become more, able to understand who they are and what they're about, and that's helped me to be able to choose those readers that I can actually trust. Like, if I get a reading from them, then I can go and apply that to my life right now. Like, I just had a reading the other day, and it was it was because somebody from my past has been praying, over, not kind things over me. And, I kind of already knew these things. Like, a lot of the times when I get readings, sometimes I already know them, but I do feel like I need confirmation just because it is such a personal issue. And so for me, like, I kind of already knew this person was doing a little too much, but I did feel like I wanted somebody older than me, somebody wiser than me, or somebody disconnected from the situation. Even they didn't have to necessarily be an elder, but somebody, who was separate from it, who could just, maybe just give some good mothering advice. I think I said that last week. It's good to just be mothered sometimes. And sometimes, you need to pay for it. Sometimes you can just reach out and ask. Sometimes it just happens, like it did the other day when I was at the grocery store, and I was a little bit short on change, and the mom behind me just paid for the little buns I was trying to buy and the bananas I was gonna put back. And she just mothered me for a second, and I said, you don't have to do that. And she said, I know. And the look she gave me in my eye was, just let me mother you for a second. I think you need to be mothered right now. Maybe mother wasn't the thought she was thinking, but it was being mothered, and or fathered, whatever, parented, however you feel most comfortable thinking of that situation. But I really like the feminine terms. I really do. And I do think that we should still be working to apply feminine terms in our society, because I've kind of noticed, like, as we've worked towards gender neutral, masculine terms have been kind of allowed to be more gender neutral, but feminine terms are, like, definitely have a lot more backlash against them. So I do think it's important to still be trying to put in feminine terms. So let's try and wrap this up now that we're on 24 minutes of a chop break on this damn video. But it kind of turned out really well. We should do more bibliomancy maybe, and it will bring up topics that are important to root working and hoodoo and conjure, however we're going to refer to it, and we can make sure our sister circle kind of keeps with that, because that is, my main goal for this year's sister circle, is to have that focus on roots, because so few people do. And it's important, y'all. It's important to be unapologetically Black. It just is. People question it. They question people who are dark-skinned. They question people who are light-skinned. They question people who are mixed. Everybody's got questions for people who are pro-Black. And I think it's telling. It's telling. There's just so much rampant anti-Blackness. Like, if you do nothing else in your life, live your life unapologetically Black. That's all I think. If you accomplish nothing else, that is the biggest, best accomplishment you can ever have. And I say that sincerely. So we're on to the 16. That was all off the first sentence. Okay, whatever. Move only if there's a real advantage to be gained, and then it was whether to concentrate or to divide your troops must be decided by circumstance. I think that's really important to remain malleable, to remain able to get up and go, to remain that's like one of my favorite traits about myself. Like it's a sad trait, like I'm not gonna get too much into it, but like I said, I had a hard childhood, but one of the things that I've always really admired about myself looking back, because you know how you look back at your childhood and you see yourself as that child, and you're just like, like, if only this had happened, or if only that had happened, or like maybe you had a really wonderful childhood, so you look back and you're just like that little cherub-faced baby just enjoying life, however you look back. But I look back sometimes and I'm just like, wow, I had a really amazing ability as a small child to even in the face of extreme tragedy, extreme, craziness, to really readjust my mindset to, you know, be able to go forth with the information I had then, or with how things had changed, and really, really work with whatever the circumstances, and change up according to circumstance, and move according to circumstance. And I think that's a very important skill to have. And that, I think, kind of is thinking like a root worker, knowing when to, divide or concentrate your assets, what you have working for you, when to use what. That is a very important skill for a root worker. So we're on to 17. Let your rapidity be that of the wind. And oh, whoops, sorry, I forgot to say though, there's these little brief notes in here from other people who read the book later on and added to it. And so this version adds some of those. And there was a note here called entice out the enemy, for moving only when there's advantage. And I think that's important too, is recognizing sometimes when you need to change the circumstances before you move, because sometimes it's not just about waiting for the circumstance to change, but about changing it or inviting that change into your life. So then 17, let your rapidity be that of the wind. There is a note here, invisible and leaves no tracks. The wind is not only swift, but it's invisible and leaves no tracks. Be, swift, be clean, be efficient in that way. Your compactness, that of the forest. The note here is, when slowly marching, order and ranks must be preserved. But the natural forest does not grow in rows, whereas they do generally possess the quality of density or compactness. So in that way, I think that can be your internal compactness. You can be so well put together that others can't just like walk straight through you. But then also to think of it in terms of how you put yourself together in your everyday life, that as how you handle the space around you. I think, being that compactness is also really interesting when I think about handling nature and connecting nature, and not being too much, doing too much, having too much, which I think is something that as Americans we do really struggle with. And then also as humans, I guess, in the modern times, we all kind of have that going on. In raiding and plundering, be like fire. So be thorough, I think, is really, what that's about. It's a total cleanse, be totally committed to it, totally consumed. Fire as a, it says fierce as a blazing fire, which no man can check, was the note for that. So I think that, having that full passion behind your actions, and in immovability like a mountain. That is when holding a position from which the enemy is trying to dislodge you, or when they're trying to entice you into a trap. So having that discipline to remain immovable, and to not get sucked in to the bullshit, to not get sucked into things that don't serve you. That, I think, is, yeah, that was such a interesting little part of that book. But anyways, that can be a really good way to just get your thoughts flowing in the morning, to get your mind back on track with your spirituality. It doesn't have to be this book, it can be other ones. I've also used the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I have like that really pretty version I've shown you guys before. I don't even see it just sitting around my house, but I should have it somewhere. But anyways, I oh, it right here. But anyways, I have this really pretty version, which I will sometimes do that as well with. I really like this, but it is a little hard sometimes to read, like the words, and then like it's like you have to read the whole thing, and then it's like you have to really think about what you've read. This one takes a little more effort, I think, just because the translation is from like a culture and like a way of speaking that I think we're not as familiar with. But once you get into the rhythm of it, it can be really beautiful. But yeah, it has the actual papyrus that is translated above it. So this version of this book is really awesome. And it's super big. I love it. Let me see who's Dr. Ogden Goelet, Goelet Jr., and Dr. Raymond O. Faulkner are the two names on the top there, if you're trying to get this version of the Book of Going Forth by Day. But yeah, it's all in color. I really like this one. But yeah, so, and I mean, like, I have in the intro video some other books that maybe could work for you for this. But and I think it's my second intro video, so it's the one that's up there right now on the front page of the channel. So that has like other books, and I think I put them in the description box for somebody, so you could just go there and like look at the different books and see if there's anything you'd want to add to your collection to maybe practice this with. So we start our Sacred Woman Studies today on page 307, in the section titled Coming Together, Sister to Sister. A sister once told me, my grandmother said to me, don't take anything from women. We got scared of each other because of competition for men and scarce survival resources. And let me add to that men have made the resources scarce for women, which has caused us to have to compete and vie for said resources. For example, us making less an hour per dollar than a man does causes us to have to try to use them for resources, try to involve them in our quest to gain resources. And there's also the the use of marriage, the withholding of resources in the past few centuries, which has gotten better in this century, but there is still centuries and centuries of resources kind of being withheld and used and distributed by men in a way that has made us all have to fight each other. We've been competing for men, but men have also been kind of forcing this competition upon us, which is the patriarchal system. So as a result, we've tried to hurt each other and keep each other down. But now we're going to begin to open up and look at each other and hug each other and know that it's going to be okay. And when we do our inner work, life reflects who we are now. When we're out in the world, what we see is our own reflection. When we're taking our loving bath and take time to do our affirmations, while we're commuting from home to work, we're incorporating wellness into our whole life. So keep your lemon water by your desk, have your mott's feather in your medicine bag, and pull it out at high noon when you feel really stressed out. Then it will be easy when you're with another sister because she'll be reflecting what you've done for yourself. Trust the womb in her as well. Trust your other women, trust your other sister friends, trust your other womb friends, womb bearers. We need to start trying to foster and facilitate these connections with each other. And I mean, that's going to take some give and some take, and there's going to be some burns, along the way, but it is important to reach out. It is important to try. It is important to put that effort out there. Sister to sister, growing into woman to woman. As sisters, Queen Esther and I spoke the same language, shared the same visions, raised our children together. We sat around the table and talked. Sometimes our sessions seemed to go on for days. We became spiritual blood sisters. My sister was so young, but yet so very wise. Her joy of living inspired me to see life in a more beautiful way, in a more ecstatic way. She added to my fire. Queen Esther is a cultural activist, extraordinary African mother of two, entrepreneur, businesswoman, and dancer of pure grace. She is a lovely woman indeed, who above all has a love for her people that is profound and supreme. As sisters, we sat back to back with inquisitions of the heart, the mind, and the spirit. And oh, the answers did flow from me to her and through her to me. We made a pact that when we were old and still vibrant at 100 years of age and beyond, we would come together and witness. We would share and remember our story of living. Together we explored our spiritual lives. We made a home in the Native American sweat lodge and received our sacred feathers. I was her support on the reservation in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Her father, Mr. Hunter, may he rest in peace, was part of the Blackfoot Indian people. His blood running through her African body allowed Queen Esther to be one of the first African women to dance in the sacred sun dance, a tradition that has been in place for thousands of years. Every year in the month of August, the tribes come together to pray for deliverance and for the earth, our mother and father spirits, the rock people, the two-legged and four-legged creatures, and the winged people. They came together to dance, fast, and sweat for liberation. They pray for the freedom of political prisoners in American jails. And this, I think, is a beautiful, excerpt because it reminds us of what we could be building with our own tribes, sister tribes of people, making our own new traditions, and really connecting with each other with our own spiritual practices. I think also her connection with Queen Esther was one of choice, one of intuitive spiritual connection, and also one where they both made the choice to be each other's friends, to help each other with children, to be each other's support system and rock. Every year in the month, during slavery, many Africans fled to the Native Americans for refuge, and they were able to live together because of this common traditions, views, and rituals of family sharing and moral value. Both groups respect nature and both believe in the sacred feather. The eagle of the natives of Turtle Island and the Nubian sacred falcon were birds that represented our spiritual ascension. From this coming together emerged such people as Mr. Hunter, part Blackfoot, part African. Chief Crow Dog was a bad dude, which in Harlem means powerful in a positive way. He was also empowered and in tune as one of the leaders of the Sioux Nation. He honored and gave permission for my sister Queen Esther to dance in the sun dance of the South Dakota Black Hills. So did Morenzo, a sweat lodge leader, artist, and friend from Chicago. Together with over 150 people who came out to be sun dancers and supporters, we pitched a tent on the reservation. We washed in a nearby lake when we rose at sunrise and fasted, or ate air sandwiches, as Queen Esther called it. The morning was filled with drums that woke us at 5 a.m. to begin the purification ritual which then went on for 4 days. Esther would dress in traditional native garb, feathers, shawls, wraps. She would do a morning sweat, dance for 8 hours in the sun and rain. I supported her and Lorenzo during this sacred time. Each night during the 4-day dance, my sister and I sat on the Great Mother Moot in the sweat lodge, heated with 20 to 40 hot rocks. So I think that sentence is so powerful too, because it reminds you that it's not just the action, it's the mindset of this action, it's the purpose behind the action, it's the intention, it's the prayer. She was sitting in the Great Mother. She was in that mindset, she was in that meditation mindset. One of the most amazing sweats was when we shared the lodge with some Native women from Alaska. They were spiritually solid. We sweated out our old pains, unresolved anger, unfulfilled dreams, and disappointments. We sweated for hours, strengthened by the power of our people, until a freedom call rang out from deep within. Freedom is at hand. Resurrection of a nation is coming forth. As we grew into woman to woman, we sweated out negativity, old baggage that we picked up as we journeyed through life. And also this is very beautiful because it's communal. And that is something, part of the reason why I do this sister circle online is, yes, we're all alone, but this, when we all step forward and do something maybe in a platform or witness on the same platform, we are connecting. We do have the opportunity to, through comments, through other videos and other people, and learning about new concepts and looking up those new concepts, then we are able to get more of those connections and find more new people, and eventually meet these people, eventually get these connections in the physical form that we're already getting in the web form. Alone, in that way. So, we're all separate, but we're together in a way. And this, as we continue with each other, even just by simply viewing, we are, and witnessing, we are creating the path for the laying the groundwork for the future connections that will be made. At times we forget to study and we let the unlearned lessons accumulate. We forget to put down the excess baggage, but when we caught ourselves starting to dry up like raisins in the sun, we talked together, prayed together, meditated together, and rocked the pain away. We called on freedom, strength, love, power, forgiveness, and peace for ourselves, our blood families, and our extended families. You will always be with me, my sister woman, Queen Esther, even if we are miles apart. Hi. Thanks to the Creator, I know how to call you up without a phone. My deep friendship with Queen Esther is a powerful example of a wonderful sister-to-sister relationship. It's great to have. We had to switch scenes. My daughter had an accident. We're in the throes of potty training. I think I left off on my deep friendship with Queen Esther is a powerful example of a wonderful sister-to-sister relationship. It's great to have a soul connection with a generous, loving woman who's working on herself, but it's a whole other thing to have a relationship with a woman who's working with you. A relationship stagnates when the other person is capable only of offering negativity to you, only capable of taking from you, sucking from you, using you. There's no building with you, no helping you, no supporting you. Why is it some women are able to claim the mantle of sacred woman while others proudly claim the mantle of bitch? They can control and terrorize us for ages, but as we begin to work on ourselves, we discover that in reality, bitches are wounded women in need of deep healing. So this next portion of hers is about the bitch, is what Queen Afua calls them. So that's what I'm going to be reading. But for me, I feel, essentially when she's referring to this, she's referring to that pained part, that abused part within the Black woman, which I do believe I believe all of us experience it to some degree, to some level. Some of us are burdened more than others, either due to our unique situation being that much more abusive, or due to the, intersectionality of different oppressions. For example, being darker skinned, being more heavy, fat, or obese, or, whatever the term, because, a lot of people have, a body shaming is, done kind of for most body parts, you know what I mean? I feel, or what should I say, is that everybody experiences often that body dysmorphia, although certain, obviously, body types are put on a pedestal over others. And then, obviously religion, and, race, class, etc. These are all different ways that we can end up getting oppressed. And so when she's talking about the bitch, she's talking about that part of us that has been broken, abused to the point where it is not functioning normally, or it is functioning from a place of pain, from a place of brokenness, from a place, that is not of healing, that is not healthy. So that's, the opposite of a sacred woman in this case, is what she's referring to when she's talking about the bitch. What happens to people when they are stolen away from their home, then endlessly used and abused by another group of people for personal diabolical gain? I love that she calls it diabolical gain, because, you leave it to white people to tell the history, and they'll be like, we gave you everything. If we hadn't taken over the world and destroyed nature, no one would have any of the modern amenities, which is not true. But also, it wasn't really about making mankind better. It was a very personal, very, diabolical, villainous place that this colonization really came from. What happens to the generations of women of such a tribe who were continuously raped for hundreds of years by their oppressors for pleasure and profit? What happens to a once whole, beautiful African woman who was forced to bear the babies conceived under such defiling circumstances? So, she here is, like I said, she's talking about that abuse, that pain, which is why I kind of shy away from the word bitch, because I don't feel like Black women are bitches for, responding how we respond. I feel like our anger is valid, usually, and I feel like often what is actually pain, sadness, betrayal is misinterpreted as anger simply because it is the Black woman. And I think the word bitch kind of minimizes it down to being about anger, when it is about, maybe it is about anger, but it's also about so many other things. And the word bitch also implies that, someone's being vindictive or rude without cause, but anyways, we're gonna just read this chapter, because I don't think our ancestors were bitches. I don't think reacting to that generational trauma makes you a bitch, but I do see where Queen was going with that, and why she felt like she needed to have a word that would describe this type of pain that is within us, and sometimes consumes us, to the detriment of our functioning in society. One of the negative things that can happen to women under such circumstances is bitch possession. This is page 309. The bitch is an unrealized woman, encased in pain and filled with fear. She's a woman who feels trapped by life, surrounded by and absorbed in her own waste. The bitch is a negative, evil entity or spirit that possesses the body temple of a woman who has already been filled with rage, hate, envy, and despair. So she's saying, that this is kind of the end result. After you've had all of this happen to you, you're ripe to venture forth and go into your life as this angry, vindictive person who's willing to continue the cycle of anger. The bitch can possess any woman from any race and any status. The bitch is on the opposite pole from the sacred woman, and ultimately she will strangle and destroy the one who is possessed by her. I think that is partially because you are holding on to the anger, the stress, all of those things. They do wear you down. When you're doing this journey and as you start to release things, you'll realize that as you spiritually release things, you will start to feel a physical correlation. And sometimes it literally will feel like something has been lifted off of your shoulders or your heart. It feels lighter. And that type of physical heaviness that you didn't even realize, that baggage, bag lady, put your bags down. You sometimes you don't even realize you're carrying the bags or how heavy the bags are until you put them down, and then you realize, wow, I've been hurting myself for the last few years carrying this. And who knows, the negative detriment, you can't take that back. You can't take it back. All you can do is release it right now. So this piece is a response to some of what this society has rendered to my people, and so to me. I have no choice but to share this message because bitch possession in others has hurt me throughout the years. She's given me the blues, made me feel bad about myself, made me feel used. Sisters with bitch possession brought me to tears, leaving me feeling attacked and hopeless, in despair. I'd shut down so tight no one could get through because I was running scared of her and intimidated. Even my children would tell me, Mama, people mistake your kindness for weakness. Supernova, my son, would say, Mama, you got to get stronger. You got to speak out and defend yourself. So, that part is very valid, that, you will have people around you who are lashing out. And I think that this part was very valid, that she was talking about, that being able to recognize when you're kind of just putting yourself in harm's way. And then also when it is appropriate to reach out and help somebody. Because some people, you can't help everybody. That's a big point here. So over the years, my own healing has helped me to see that the bitch is a sick state in a woman. She needs psycho-spiritual and physical healing and purging. This understanding has allowed my fears of her to turn into compassion. Because, right, she's here in, the last few paragraphs, she's like, and, they've hurt me. And that's true. That's very true. Most of us can attest that one of the people who's hurt us the most in our life has been a woman, a hurt woman in our life. For a lot of us, that person was our mother, our sister, somebody who was a local person, maybe, a fellow student, or, what have you. Somebody out there was policing us. Maybe it was an elder when we were a child. There's so many different, combinations of, people who we can all attest have hurt us, because they're in this space, because they've been hurt these hurt people being hurting people. And but here she reminds us that walking around angry and fearful of other Black women is not the answer. Being like, oh well, she doesn't smile, so fuck all of it, is not the answer. The answer is in the compassion, is in that peace. The sacred woman does have that compassion and is not so burned that she'll never help somebody again. She is learning when to give of herself, through trial and error and learning, but she's not just cutting herself off from everything else out of that fear, because there is the compassion for the community and the empathy for what that other person is experiencing and has experienced. Over the years, she says, it has helped me to take the stance of the healer, pulling on my ancestors for strength and clarity. One early morning, I was in my tub in a bath with 8 pounds of salt, trying to heal the bitch from a bitch encounter. I sat there staring at the wall, tears rolling down my face. I cried out, "That's evil. Why is she so evil?" Then I started running an inner tape going back to when I was 7. I've built up hurts for my sisters. Finally, after pondering, I said aloud, "That's a bitch." My husband was in shock, for I was not known for cursing. There was silence in the bathroom, and my husband said, "It's time for you to write about your feelings before it kills your spirit." I was in a trance as the tears kept silently flowing down my face, over my breasts, and into the water. And then I looked down at the water, and I saw I was surrounded by a bath of tears. I was spellbound, locked in a space, despondent. That was a painful day, and to make things worse, it moved by in slow motion. I cried all day long. I cried to my mother, asking her why we women are so often this way. "What's wrong with us?" I cried to my friend Prima. I cried as I walked the streets, and finally, at the end of the day, I began to write. I transformed these tears to these pages so that some healing could take place in my people who are suffering greatly from a post-slavery conditioning that has gone as deep as our DNA, a conditioner that keeps us hurting one another, as woman to woman. The Random House College Dictionary defines bitch as 1, a female dog, 2, a lewd woman, meaning obscene, indecent, low, vulgar, slang for a malicious woman, motivated by viciousness, an unpleasant, selfish woman, anything difficult or unpleasant. Characteristics of a bitch: spiteful, malevolent, which is also a characteristic of a bitch, wishing evil to another or others, sharing ill will, ill-disposed, vindictive, evil, harmful, injurious. Why would I talk about the maliciousness and vindictiveness of the bitch in Sacred Woman? Because the bitch has always been a part of my evolution as far back as I can remember, and I'm certain she's been a part of yours. She's shown up in the form of friends, associates, family members, co-workers, even healers throughout my life. I was raised to be a brownstone princess, and some people have called me Miss Goody Two-Shoes. I was not raised to be a bitch, and as a result, I was not given the tools or the skills to identify, recognize, cope with, work through, handle, or heal the scars that the bitch leaves behind. I wanted to briefly pause and say how important it is that she mentioned that the healers in your life could be this person. It's so important to be intuitive, to do readings, to not just blindly trust or give of yourself to somebody, even if they're the most popular person, even if everybody else loves them to death. It's so important to follow your own intuition, because what works for others doesn't always work for you. And, what works for you don't always work for other people. And to go further, a lot of people out there who are, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. There are, that is something we're going to have to keep, it's wise to remember as we're moving in these, root working streets, these conjure streets, these African traditional religion streets are getting more filled with people. We have to remember that, con men exist, con women exist. And some people will find that it's easier to move in, that sheep's clothing, even though they don't have any of those types of intentions to do well by you. But, you may give them a chance or let them into your circle a little sooner than you would have because of the costume, the persona that they put on. So I think it was very important that she said, yes, even healers have had this sickness in them and tried to drag her down, tried to hurt her, in this process. So I had to go at it alone. So she was saying that she the way she was raised, who her family was, and just the circumstances she was under, she didn't have much experience with the bitch until much later on in life, and that was a hindrance because she didn't know how to deal with people who just lashed out just to lash out, who lashed out just to expand the pain from that's just pent up within them. She said, I had to go it alone and learn as I went along, for no one was able to break down for me how to live with the bitch, not in my blood family, my extended, or in society at large. From where I am now, I recognize there are chamomile women, the calm and gentle type, aloe vera women who are direct but helpful, cayenne and ginger women who are quick, hot, and intense, and clay women who are down-to-earth realists who thrive off nature, grass, and trees. And of course, there is the bitch. Yet all women have the potential to become the lotus woman, or to be the lotus woman, to be spiritually enlightened, gracious, beautiful, compassionate, and whole. Sometimes a bitch develops in a woman who is running scared that she's not enough, not good enough, not strong enough, not powerful enough, not woman enough. That I think is so true. People who just for whatever reason feel they don't measure up. They just don't feel like their family is good enough. They don't feel like they have enough money. They don't feel like their skin tone is good enough. They wish that their physical representation showed something different. They think their ancestry isn't as good as somebody else's, and this inadequacy, really, this sense of inadequacy can start to tear you down, and it makes you resent the people who you feel are adequate, were given those tools, were gifted through the luck of the draw some sort of abilities. And so it is so important to make sure you're not scared that you're not enough, to recognize that is your issue, because that is something that can also lead to this hurt person who is so resentful that they're just lashing out at other people. When a woman gets more pressure than she can handle, she sometimes gets possessed by the bitch. I think we've all experienced that stress. I think, motherhood is something that can trigger that in you. Taking care of the home in any shape, form, or way, from the bills to the cleaning, can put you in that kind of space. School, work, getting, a higher level position in your job, that pressure, especially when people start to mule you. It's not just like that thrill of like, oh, I like it when the pressure's on and I have only like 10 hours to do it, and like I pulled it off, like, oh, that felt good. Not that kind, but like when you're being like muled, when you're being over labored, when you're being used and constantly used and unappreciated, that can trigger it within you. A first-class bitch develops in a woman who's forced to live under tight conditions with limited space, limited resources, limited finances, with little to no support from a black man who has experienced his own set of unresolved issues: sexual abuse, rape, mutilation. This one is so important. Relationships are changing. People, are dating interracially. People are not even dating men. People are, they have their, they're not even identifying as women. So there's so many, nuances to that, but that is still such a huge issue within our community. This thing where we are shocked that people break in these extreme circumstances in which they have limited resources, limited financing, no support, no community, have been left behind with children, have been left to fend for themselves. It's implied that there's some kind of gold digger, or asking too much, or that they're putting them, not seeing themselves for their place because they're asking for, basic needs. I feel like black women especially get kind of ridiculed as gold diggers when we ask for basic ass shit that people will profess is something all women are owed when it comes to other races. Other races for women, a big wedding, a big house, all this stuff, that's like, of course, why wouldn't you pamper your wife? But with a black woman, it's like, oh yeah, she's like trying to finagle you in to get your finances. And so, we do end up living in these tight situations with tight finances, which stresses us out. And then nobody's understanding it, and people are acting like it's La La Land, or like their easy situation is our situation. And that can also bring it up within us, like all these stress situations, which is why I do emphasize Black women getting theirs. I do think it's important for us to understand that we are not asking too much to get these things, and we're not crazy for asking for them. We're not crazy for wanting them. We're not crazy for demanding it, or walking away from a table that's not serving what we deserve. These are well cultivated negative environments. That's what she's saying right here. That's the result of a well cultivated negative environment, and Black women are constantly put in them, constantly expected to live in them long term. And this is what breaks us, and this is the type of stuff we need to be willing to walk away from, cut ourselves off from, not accept anymore, because a sacred woman does not have to accept these things. She does not have to accept this lifestyle, and she will not live in those tight conditions. And that is, I think, recognizing that you do not have to live in those tight conditions, that you do have the ability to pull yourself from the mud and be the lotus woman, and not be bogged down by other people's expectations that you be a mule, and also the cycle of anger and hatred and stress that kind of sets you up to be a mule. Let's continue. She says, the bitch is a survivalist. She will take you down before she's taken out, because it's all about survival of herself, her children, or her man at whatever cost. The problem is that she needs to watch out, for the bitch in her will take her out too, while she's in the process of doing her thing. So that is ultimately it, is that yes, you may get somewhere with all this, you're lashing out, you're doing all this crazy, but ultimately you are stressing yourself out. You are harboring and holding all this baggage that is ultimately going to bring you down in the end. So she says here, I speak here of the bitch because through systematically adapting the sacred woman principles, she can indeed be healed. All women have the potential to be the bitch to ourselves, to our sister friends, to our men who are afraid to confront a woman with a bitch possession. Therefore, they end up fleeing to women of other cultures who don't have this psychological baggage that the history of slavery in the country has passed through our African genes. The Black man runs to other women for refuge, turning their backs on us Black women because they say we're acting bitchy. Bitchiness has become our reputation. We hear it from the lips of many. They complain of our sometimes overbearing, dominating spirit, always seemingly fighting for survival. Come on, sister, if it's you I'm speaking to and you're tired of getting the old relationship blues, try to lighten up. So obviously that is a very, she shortened that all down because there are many other reasons why Black men will leave Black women, right? There's also, it's a status symbol, right? A Black woman isn't the status symbol. They're like I think what's her name, Kenya. What's her YouTube channel called? Kenya Says, or says, and she was talking one time about Kanye West, and she was talking about this, and she was talking about how, you reach a certain level, and then it's like, if you marry a Black woman, it's like, it's not as much of a status symbol, because you could have had a Black woman when you were nobody Kanye from Chicago. The status symbol comes from getting this Becky that you wouldn't have been able to have before. So there's many levels to this, but there is a reputation that has been built around the Black woman, which is in some way earned, in many ways stereotypical, that has been covered the Black woman, and that many try to reject, and from Black women and Black men will try to reject Black women and Blackness to avoid this stereotype that has been really placed on us. So she and internalized by us, not just placed on us, but internalized by us. So she says there's part-time bitch possession. Part-time bitches emerge when the need arises. They appear to be a normal woman most of the time, even show genuine kindness. The sword's not active full-time, but if you catch them on the wrong day, you will get sliced and diced at the drop of a dime. And when they're done, it's business as usual. They pretend that, well, whatever, like, it is what it is. Like, sometimes you get cut, And then she also has the full-time bitch possession, which is some women are full-time bitches, evil all the time, even when they calmly are smiling right at your face. The wheels of deception constantly turn towards evil things. She stirs her pot with sly words, her poisonous thoughts, and the proverbial evil eye, which is in full effect. She steadily releases venom in the atmosphere, leaving a stench that infects passerby, for her mission in life is to destroy the very core and essence of life. Beware if you are her chosen victim, for when she strikes, your only way out is to strengthen yourself by raising your vibratory level through fasting and prayer. Finally, she says, let's not forget the sweet bitch who manipulates you through apparent kindness. She's the one who hugs and embraces you and appears supportive and utters gentle tones to you with an easy glide. After being with her, you'll probably feel ecstatic about an exchange, a project, or a promise. And then about a block later, a day later, a borough, a city away, a month or year later, you realize you've been had. Something was stolen that what you once had. You've suddenly had a drastic leap and made aware that she took your mind, your confidence, your money, your time, your gift, your secret with a smile, and left you bloody and wounded. This bitch may be skillfully subtle at times, and at others overtly ruthless, cutthroat, and deadly. These various types of bitches are the strongest in their toxic symptoms, most venomous during the full moon and during the time of their menses. Evilness rules within them, especially during this period. I think that it's good that she spelled out these different types, because this is, again, where intuition and staying in your center really helps you, especially when you're meeting somebody who has ill intentions towards you. Following that inner voice that is saying, yes, this person is smiling to me, yes, everything adds up on paper, but something here is telling me something's wrong, something here is telling me I should keep this secret to myself. I think that's a really wise thing too. Not always keeping your secrets to yourself, because you do need to talk to someone sometimes. But there are ways to, start to be able to note and read the energy, so that you are aware when you're in front of somebody who's manipulating. And then also, really being aware of the part-time bitch, because that person is genuine at times, but then it's like if you cross this certain line, they will hurt you. And I think a lot of people are probably always going to be that way if they don't know you. They're like that with all strangers. But as time moves on, and as sacred women, we're people who are not approaching life with where we're trying to take the option of being the bitch off the table, because there are other strong, effective ways to communicate with others, to get your point across, to be clear about something that you're upset with, without going full bitch on people, pulling out the sword. Queen goes on to say, some confuse Sekhmet, the fierce lion-headed Kamite female spiritual guardian, with the bitch. But Sekhmet fights to destroy evil. So the distinction here is fighting for the right cause. Not just lashing out, not just focusing on personal self and ego, but to be fighting for the correct cause. Which is, the same with the 42 laws of Mott, right? When we study that, there's nuance to things. Some actions are inappropriate, right, in most situations, but then in certain situations would be appropriate, because you'd be fighting for the moral thing, the right thing. Sekhmet is not a bitch. She is a healer who won't take anything off anybody, be it a person, a warped society, or an institution. Oh, she won't take anything of anybody, I think is what that, yeah. Sekhmet is motivated by Mott, or justice, whereas the bitch feeds off of consistent diet of greed, lust, fear, anguish, selfishness, control, envy, bitterness, confusion, and deception. The bitch was greatly cultivated during slavery. She's a byproduct of the mass rape of one people by another. She, the black woman, was the bedwarmer, the property of the European slave owner. At the time, she was the servant of the European woman, herself notorious for using bitch tactics when striving to control black women as prisoners of slavery. That is a very important note, that white women were not only complicit, but they were the cultivators of a lot of these, the most underhanded woman tactics that we see in modern society were originally cultivated and utilized by white women against women of color, black women, enslaved black women, as forms of control, as ways to get power for themselves, because they lacked certain powers in this society, and so this was a way for them to regain back some of this. So she says, this once a beautiful, highly spiritual African priestess, elder, mother, queen, princess, and herbalist was brought to these shores violently. Then, through whips and chains, was forced to submit to continuous rape from slave owners, from her man, from any field hand by the slaveholder's command, resulting in impregnation for human profit. So, because black women, right, because we were at this position of society, anybody who at their whim felt like betraying us felt like overpowering us could and did. And any child created during that 400-year period was up for grabs for profit. And so this is connected in a sense through womb memory, right? We in Gateway 1, we were reminded that the womb does not forget. And so this is continuing on. So, like a cow in herd, she brought forth as many babies as she was able for the profit of this wicked plantation system of slavery. The head of a slave woman's captive family was the slave master. He had the upper hand. He was the law. He, like welfare, was the provider of room and board, a shack to live in, shop to eat, rags for clothes for herself and her babies. The stolen woman's man or spiritual husband could be lynched, sold away, forced to impregnate another woman to provide a more suitable potential laborer. Plantation life had to grow, and this economic strengthening was created by the number of heads, slaves, that were put to work. So forget about family ties. A little girl growing up without a daddy was our norm on these shores, and it created the post-slavery conditioning that led to dysfunctional families and female heads of families. Fatherless little girls growing up to be angry women who became possessed by the bitch. Now ain't that a bitch? This doesn't mean that we did not try to find each other, right? Which is historically inaccurate. Of course, we tried to find each other. We always were looking for each other, especially right after emancipation. Newspapers were filled with articles of people just trying to find each other. People stitched their names into, items for their children when their children would be sold off so that perhaps one day they could meet again, which many didn't. Most did not. And but the fact that most did not stuck with us, and it has affected us. It has affected our souls to be alone, to not have an elder to call upon. It does affect you. It affects us now, and so having it be even more systemic and rampant at other times in history really gives us more of a understanding of what we're working with and what we're trying to heal today as a community. So a bitch attitude often comes out of an incest experience, yet another leftover from plantation life to make more slaves on a mass level by any means. The criminal slave owners would force impregnation not just from a man and woman of age and from different families, but by any means available: mother, son, father, daughter, uncle, niece. Today incest does run rampant in our race. The disease spread and survived through the generations, and this is a disease that was found in European communities as well, rampantly. So I do believe that that's part of also why it wasn't just the convenience of needing to get slaves to procreate, but also because it was already normalized in their communities, so it wasn't that much of a leap or a jump to be forcing that behavior from the enslaved. So, Black women are on the defensive from centuries of continuous crimes committed on their wombs, and so they've been left with dysfunctional lives. A perfect breeding ground for the bitch. How can she help but be angry and evil and mad, right? Like I said earlier, she has a reason to be angry about what has occurred. The venom passed down from one generation to the next through eating of flesh, pork, beef, chicken, and from sugar, drugs, and alcohol. All of this can ensure bitchiness. So, what she's talking about there is not only what you're consuming, but the act of consumption, the lifestyle, addictive behaviors, eating things just to feel better, consuming things just to feel a certain way, even if it's long-term not beneficial. And it's valid. Again, like I'm saying, it is valid when we have somebody who is addicted to something, be it a meat product, they're eating meat like a shit ton because it just feels good, or if they are drinking a ton because it feels good. Self-medicating in this life is a reasonable thing to see when we have people who are as abused as Black women still are. But at the same time, this is a choice to be disciplined, to try and work through this, to utilize other strengths so that we are not dependent on these substances. So, most of us women folk are fighting for our lives. The endless battle destroys some of us, but some women build out of misery. Some become freedom fighters, some become cultural activists, others become healers. That I think is an important distinction. We aren't all going to be doing the same job. We're not all going to be a priestess, sitting in our house administering womb steams. Some of us are going to be out on the streets. An image comes to mind is, remember that beautiful picture of that sister saging out in the protest street. She's dressed in her sacred whites in front of a line of cops and full gear, and a smoke cleansing situation. And that's cultural activists also will be people who are artists, will also be writers, poets, people who create film, people who create other types of imagery or artistic expression to help people understand the movement and people understand what we're working towards, either as sacred women, as Black people, as feminine people, as womb bearers, as birthers, as mothers, as birth workers, whatever it is, healers, warriors, whatever. So yet all these women are post-slavery prisoners of a hideous crime, perpetrated by one group on another. And this is one thing that I think is very important. I think that's a very important distinction she made, because, you know, I'm somebody who has experienced child sexual abuse, and this is something that, because I've spent so much time in groups, I know a lot of people, one of the hardest things that a lot of people who've experienced this have is having to come to the grips that this is something that happened to you, and you can erase it. It's written in, you know, your pages. You were young, you know, it's not even like you can make up some kind of fanciful story about, like, what if this other stuff, because, you know, when you're a child, you're completely at other people's whim. And so I think, you know, being able to come to a place of being centered about the fact that you are, how'd she say it, a prisoner of a hideous crime, perpetrated from one person to another, right? It's not that you're a prisoner, like you're locked into the emotions. You're a prisoner in the sense that it did happen, and it is something that will affect you. It is something that will pop up in your mind sometimes, and that's something that Black women always will have to deal with, right? We always have to deal with the fact that we do have this legacy. This did happen. You know, people are always like, oh, well, why, it was a long time ago, blah, 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 but it does still affect. It is still something that affects often enough that at least weekly, and that I'm trying to say lightly, because I know there's some people who pretend like they're like, it never affects me. So I'm like, for those people, I say it probably happens maybe every week or so. They get a jolt like, oh yeah, I'm Black, and this is the world I have to live in because of that, because of this rampant anti-Blackness, and this anti-Blackness continues to pop up in situations where I least expect it, because who would expect it in this situation? Who would expect, you know, it did. Oh, I thought we were progressing as a you know, human species, human race, and yet here we are, random bout of anti-Blackness right here. And this person didn't even realize it. They thought they were being intellectual, and so, you know, we do have to continuously work with that. And so the difference is, you know, as a bitch, you know, making this into an excuse to lash out at everybody, you know, whatever, create this evil, create this chaos, which, you know, chaos is a part of life, but if you're just holding it into yourself all the time, you are ready to destroy yourself. But then also, you know, instead being a sacred woman, and understanding what is happening for what it is, but also still working from a place of healing, a place of creating, a place of working towards peace, growth, betterment of Black people, of our traditional cultures, our traditional ways, our African natural lifestyle, as Queen Afua would call it, and reclaiming that and building upon it, in the face of this oppression and abuse. So and so in that way, healing ourselves as we fight the abuse. So she says, this terrible legacy causes a number of overt reactions and innumerable suppressed reactions. Some women have become docile and debilitated. Some have become modern-day house Negroes, obedient prisoners. Some have demonstrated a lack of self-love so powerful that their self-hate ends up mutilating their African beauty. They bleach their dark skin to a lighter, so-called whiter tone. Others commit to surgically trimming down the broadness of nose, surgically decreasing the size of lip, placing lenses of blue, green, or hazel over their beautiful brown eyes. Or, you know, many types of body modification to this day, which, you know, even I would say the super curvy figure of today doesn't really even pay honor to Black women necessarily. It's its own kind of level of because it's attainable, because it's, you can go pay to get this Kim Kardashian body, is what they're calling it now, right? Even though Nicki Minaj and Black China had this body beforehand and were famous for it. It's called, the Kim Kardashian, and associated with people who, it's associated with, you can pay for it. It's not a genetic thing, which previously it was seen as like a genetic defect, but now you can like just pay, and it's in style. It's a strange moment we're going through, where this, body type of an over exaggerated form is what is in style. So and I think that is what's interesting, is it's found a way to make it so a lot of Black women feel inadequate in their natural form, which previously it didn't affect our communities as much. But I think social media has kind of changed that, because we've been able to be accessed a little bit more, targeted a little bit more. After the smoke cleared from the 60s, when we all got a surge of Black pride, natural hair, we then started getting equal opportunities in corporate jobs. This led to Black women reverting right back to our slave training, and we started relaxing our hair again. Because, girl, if you want the look, you better straighten out those kinks. Other women took on some of the other debilitating characteristics of post-slavery conditioning, and turned their unresolved anger, rage, bitterness, and hate and on themselves. These are the women who act out the bitch. This residue of pain has been passed down from mother to daughter, causing generational spiritual genocide. We Black women have been left wounded with attitudes that won't quit. This same attitude results in systemic injustices being done to African people. It just never stops. Drugs were poured into our communities, keeping us weak, so we're angry. And this, I think, is important to note, that it was drugs that were the cheaper, more harmful. This was deliberate. She goes on to say, so we're angry. The AIDS virus was injected into the veins of our community, rendering the Black woman among the highest percentage of AIDS carriers in the world. Again, it was, it's one of the most debilitating illnesses in the world, one of the most harmful, one of the most painful, one of the most deadly. So, Black women are outraged. We received the greatest number of hysterectomies of all women in the United States. Over 50% of Black women in this country are single parents, because so many of our men keep walking, leaving their children behind to be raised by the mother. Our sons are filling up the jails. I think also that it's not just that Black men walk away. They're some of the most highest incarcerated. And so it's statistically, there is a high probability that part of your children's childhood will be spent with you as a single mother because of incarceration. So it's not always just that they're leaving, which they are leaving in high numbers. Our men are forsaking us for women from other races. This is what we need to say. Black men, don't leave us. Help us to repair ourselves. But at the same time, don't be no toxic man, lie and cheat, because it's bound to make us real mad and have us act outside of ourselves. So it is reciprocal. There does need to be a conversation. There does need to be reciprocity, with both sides trying more to facilitate. But there is a marked, obvious need in the Black community for Black men to understand the abuses for what they are and commit to healing them, which, I have noticed that there is, a 500-page manual for women, but there's no real equivalent by men, for men movements that does not hail to patriarchal standards, does not hail to misogynistic standards, pick me standards, wife me, centering men, centering the penis, and that type of thing. There's no thing that's really cultivating the healing for men that is not based on, telling women what to do or controlling womanhood, but really focusing on the healing and the abuses that are in the community, and how patriarchal standards do hold both men and women back, especially black men. I think do get failed by this white patriarchal community society that they think that they're participating in on an upper level, but really it is failing them long term. So she says, it even appears there aren't enough men to go around for all my sisters in need of a good man, which is true. I did actually read that a little bit earlier today again, that there are, not only due to birth and, there's also the incarceration, but there's just typically more single black women than black men. And so even if all the black men did marry us, we would at large still have a lot of single women. So she says, so we claw at one another for just a taste of the chocolate, fighting for his time, his love, his arms, the security of having a man. Sorry for this part if you're not interested in men. And this really makes us bitchy towards one another. We know things are getting really bad when we hear this out of our daughters' mouths. Queen bee, meaning bitch, rules in the hip-hop nation. That's a hardcore reflection of how low we've sunk. When our girl children call themselves bitches, or when our men say with pride, that's my bitch. The bitch gains massive support in the media, which only promotes the demise of African women and of all women. And the bitch isn't the only trope of a woman of color that is touted in the media. That's pretty commonplace for all women of color, is to have a negative trope. For example, Asian women are either the submissive, they're this ultra feminine submissive, or the warrior dragon woman fighting submissive, sexual, not submissive but sexual. It's usually a sexual thing. And Latinas, they're like the feisty and then the maid. Everybody kind of has these tropes which are touted in the media, which support the demise of us. She goes on to say, so I did want to point that out so that we can correlate to other situations we've seen. So Hollywood glorifies and presents a high profile of the bitch. Only a sick society promotes and makes profit off women's pain and ignorance. A society is only as high as the status of its women, and if the women are degraded and doomed, then so are the men. And that's what I mean by the patriarchy. It fails us all. Since we are sisters from the same family, let me help you come out of your lower state, this critical deformity, before we completely self-destruct. So she has here 14 steps for purging the bitch and returning to the Lotus clan of sacred womanhood. So we're almost done, yes. These 14 steps help you break the bitch cycle to free yourself and prevent the ways of the bitch from being passed down to your daughters. Follow these for at least one season, but it's best to adhere for all 4 a full year to purge yourself of these tendencies. This is a habit-breaking commitment for a full year, or a full season, but hopefully a full year. I do think that committing to a lot of things for a full year is highly effective. It's highly effective for relationships in particular, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your spouse, your best friends, your children, etc. Committing to something for a full year, giving yourself that full time to practice, to hone, to commit, to make it more of a mindless habit is so important, because it shows that you're putting that effort, that energy into it, and that you understand that relationships are something that you've got to put that long-term, hardcore energy into. So if you have a tendency to be dominating, harsh, judgmental, sharp-tongued, with much attitude, acting as an occasional or full-blown, full-time bitch, this anti-bitch lifestyle regimen will help you make a turn for the better to help transform yourself into a lotus of Nefer Atum. 1. Confess out loud or to another sister, brother, or just yourself that you have been behaving like a bitch and that you're willing to release the bitch in you. Say it out loud. Admit it. Say it. I say I have been toxic. I have been the bitch. Like that, maybe even cringe for a second, do a quick cringe compilation of all those times of that you could have reacted like a normal fucking human being, but you didn't. You fucking went off the deep end. You did too damn much. You hurt somebody. You were petty. You could have just let it go, but you didn't. And here we fucking are, and you're ashamed. It is what it is. That's step 1. Just do it. It hurts. It's embarrassing. Hopefully, you're either by yourself or you're with trusted sister friends, womb friends who can, they know because they've been there too. They're cringing too. We're all cringing. It's cringe compilation time. Like I said, we all have it. And even the best of us can think of a handful of times when we could have fucking reacted better. And we reacted from a place of ego, of a place of self-protection, self-preservation, and the self we were preserving wasn't even worth it. It's like, what am I doing? That person didn't deserve this, whatever. Here we are. It's come to a place where you're willing to release this. You're willing to release doing that. You're done with reacting that way. You're finished. You're ready to release the bitch in you, or however you're referring to this entity within you that is full of evil, negative, going downhill. 2. Fast. Green vegetable juice, fresh fruit juices, water, herbal blood purifiers, herbal extract calmatives, such as valerian root, kava root, hops, passiflora. During your menses and around the time of every full moon, take 10 to 20 drops in a small glass of water. It is at these times in particular that the bitch can act up most and cause absolute havoc. I like this because it reminds us to take precautionary measures. If you're somebody who completely struggles with this stuff, maybe this will be, instead of at the full moon or something, which you say the full moon or around your menses, maybe you'll do it then, but maybe you'll also make this a Sunday night thing, as you begin your week. Or actually, Sunday's technically the first day of the week, so you could do it Saturday night to begin your week. But a lot of people treat Sunday as like the last day before their week starts, so you could do it, right before the work week starts, or right before the week technically starts, however, tickles your fancy. But, make your own schedule, make it something that really speaks to you. Maybe you're somebody who is going to be drinking herbal teas or a specially made fruit smoothie every single month. Every single day at the same time, keeping yourself up because you're at that level where you really need to do it. All right, my husband's back home, so I'm gonna start at number 3 when it's gonna be like in 2 seconds. I don't even know why I tell you guys. I'm warning you that I'm about to switch scenes. That's why. All right, so we're gonna finish our sacred studies. That's what I'm making for this video. So let's see. I think we left off on number 3. I said we're at 14 steps for purging the bitch and returning to the Lotus clan of sacred womanhood. So to maintain bitch blood, you have to eat a great deal of meat. The blood and flesh of an animal feeds the bitch. Other foods that strengthen bitch possession are sugars, fast food, junk food, and fried food. For a healing change, take on natural vegetarian lifestyle. Protein sources include beans, peas, soya meats, TVP, and raw soaked nuts and seeds. Limit your starch intake to small amounts of whole grains. Consume large amounts of fresh, raw, or lightly steamed vegetables. Be sure to drink 12 to 16 ounces of green vegetable juice daily, which helps you maintain a state of balance and harmony. So, definitely, I think the things to note here for her diet is that you're staying away from processed foods. You're mostly sticking with the live foods in their natural state. Your diet is largely vegetables. I think that's also worth noting because I know a lot of vegan places kind of, or eaters on YouTube and elsewhere, kind of promote tons of fruits, like fruit smoothies, fruit this, fruitarian. And it is really important to make sure you're getting a wide range of vegetables, which have so many nutrients and are so good for you. Also, doing the nuts and the seeds, the beans, these things are also highly healthy. Not having the majority of your meal be the carbs. I think it's important to have carbs. It definitely is. Carbs play important part, important role in our brain function. And they're very important for kids. So it's even more important that your kids are getting the appropriate amount of carbs. But at the same time, you just you shouldn't be eating your cheesy potatoes for every meal. There has to be, some kind of, there has to be change. And there are also some that are a little more healthy than others. So cleaning up your diet for health. Again, this is for your mental well-being, your mental clarity, your emotional well-being, your emotional clarity. Note that, like, at no time does Queen really care about your body size or trying to regulate that in any way. All the time, the dietary changes are for internal health, to make sure you're getting correct nutrients inside of your body, and also for emotional, spiritual, mental health. So we go on to number 4. Drink a tonic of 2 cloves of mashed garlic with the juice of 1 lemon and 8 to 12 ounces of water. Drink at least a quart of purified water daily. So really remaining hydrated, flushed out. 5, she says, please stop wearing all the black, gray, and dark blue, and especially red, until you are well. Wear white and pastel colors to lighten up your spirits and your mood, and then also to help you open your higher spiritual gateways, chakras, or RE2. Wearing the white and the light colors will also help when you see them, to remind you of your commitment. And also an important thing about white, that that you always see people who wear whites. It does help, you keep your mind on it, because you do have to keep your mind on white clothes to make sure that they don't totally embarrass you throughout the day with, like, you spilling all over them or some other, unsightly smudges. So it does make you really think about your clothes and think about your body and the space that you are adorning and taking up in the real world. And so yeah, it is really important to, sometimes a clothing change can have a profound effect on your spiritual journey, if need be. I'm definitely considering, I've had it in my mind for a few months to wear white next year, and really be committing further to my spiritual journey. But I haven't fully committed to that yet, but we'll see, because I would have to be, like, buying clothes now, and between now and then, and getting myself prepared, so I wouldn't, be a total frump next year, which, like, I like to do too much all the time, so, but anyways, it is a very powerful way, when you change your body adornment to something specific and something that has spiritual significance to you. Number 6, clean up your karma / shy, I think is how I should pronounce that, SHAI. Make a list of all those to whom you've been bitchy, and as you cleanse, write them or call them in person one by one. Reach out and ask for forgiveness. Offer them a supportive act to balance out your wrongdoing, and or help someone else who is in need. Without harassing people, though, because there are some people who maybe you should just leave alone. And then also, they have no obligation to accept your apology. There's no obligation that they respond to you, that, they tell you that you're forgiven, that they, give you what you want to hear in any way. it's just, you can reach out where appropriate, and apologize and acknowledge your wrongdoing, your fault, and what happens from there happens from there. And if it's not a situation where you can reach out, or where they don't reach back, find some other way to karmically help the process, I guess is what she's saying. I think karma isn't really the word here. It's like more reciprocity, so finding a way to heal that reciprocity, that cycle of what you've put out, and putting out something better to help. So 7, she says, say thank you more often for any large or small good deed done on your behalf. Wake up in the morning, say thank you, be grateful. When you're talking to your ancestors, say thank you. Thank you to, your spirit guides. Thank you to Mother Nature. Thank you to whatever is around you that, you usually take for granted, that spend some time in gratitude for what is around you every day. That is so wonderful. 8, practice smiling from your heart regularly as you send out healing from your heart center. Practice, just being genuine, and just letting yourself be free in that way. And also, they say that, smiling for a certain amount of seconds can make you feel better or release something. I feel like I've read that before. So I do think, smiling can really help with your overall disposition of things. And it doesn't have to be fake. It doesn't have to, and it could just be when you're by yourself. It doesn't have to be performative for the whole world to see. It just has to be genuine and from your core. 9, over 7 consecutive days, take 7 baths with 2 pounds of sea salt each time to draw the demon out. Take a white candle into your hydrotherapy chamber and meditate on its flame to clear your spiritual body. Or use a green candle to heal your heart center from the pain and conditions that created the bitch qualities. So here she has, a very beautiful 7-day cleanse where you do a bath daily. And you use candles to meditate with the flame and allow them to burn out. Maybe you'll have a 7-day candle for this, or 7 small candles. I think a 7-day candle is probably too short. You'd need like a 14-day candle, and it would probably last the right amount of time if you wanted to only use 1 candle. Let's see. So she said white or green. 10, practice the Mont Feather meditation. She has that on page 315 here, but I'm probably not going to read that just because I typically don't read the meditations. But find a meditation if you don't have this book. There are many meditations on YouTube that you can really find that are for forgiveness, for lightening up the heart, for releasing the past, that sort of thing. 11, cleanse your colon from old toxic waste with 3 enemas a week over a 12-week period. And 12, travel through and begin to incorporate the wisdom of the various gateways of the sacred woman in your life. 13, go on a talk fast for 1 to 8 hours. Ooh, that's like a really good one because it will really make you concentrate on what you do say, or what you would say in different situations where normally, say, you might really lash out, and because you're on the talk fast, you're not saying anything at all. It will really make you see how often perhaps you cut in with words that are harmful and not helpful, or don't come across the way you meant, because you're thinking about it more. You're more willing to come across the right way. or capable, should I say, of coming across the right way, because you're saying your second, third, fourth thought later on instead of just blurting out whatever. She says, anoint yourself with frankincense and myrrh or eucalyptus before you begin your talk fast each day. Also, before you begin, place the mott feather by your lips so that your words and attitude will lighten up. This way you will begin to train your mouth to speak from a place of mott. The final one, 14, accept and affirm your sacred calling, which will return you to your original state. Allow your higher self to emerge and rescue you from this state. Allow the beautiful lotus in you to open and blossom in the sun. Really affirm, what your goals are, who you want to be, who you really are inside, that has been really shelled in by this protective method of just lashing out at others and using others and hurting others, instead of working with people and working from a place of centeredness, of sacredness. We women folk can overcome the bitch attitude, break the bitch cycle, and come out of our possession as we make a conscious effort to put down the bitch sword and pick up the mott feather of truth and right, balance and purity. As we embrace our ancient African spiritual aspects of divinity, which meet us at every gateway of sacred woman, we will progressively rise out of the bitch state. The Creatress didn't make any of her daughters to be bitches. We are born out of the likeness and image of our Creatress into a divine being, a beautiful reflection of spirit. This section, we're on page 314. She says, if you have been attacked by a woman possessed by the bitch, if you are a lotus, chamomile, or aloe woman and you've been attacked by a woman possessed by the bitch, then you too must raise your vibration by following the 14 steps as well, so that you will attract higher relationships from your sisters. Keep in mind that the bitch may even be the reflection of yourself, of your weakness, or she may be sent to bring out your assertiveness, your strength. Even a woman acting like a bitch can teach you some valuable lessons. If you are a lotus woman who has been attacked by the bitch, don't run. Have no fear. Turn on the flashlight. Let her know that you know what she's doing, and present her with the alternative of walking in righteousness so that both of you can be winners. I think that is so important. Holding up the mirror, holding up the flashlight, shining in on what the true issue there really is. Is it about this, or I see what you're doing here, basically, and giving that alternative to choose a different way with each other. She says, create a sister-to-sister support group, a womb healing circle, purify and fast together, and really try and make that be an option of healing, of wellness to the best of your ability, depending on the situation. And also I think it's when she was talking about attracting the higher relationships, that it is okay to release those relationships and attempt to elevate yourself to not be surrounded by those relationships that are just sucking from you, that are just trying to harm you. It is okay to walk away. It is not your job to heal everybody as the sacred woman. And I think that is important for us to remember too, that it is okay to cut the cord from that type of relationship and move on. She said, but to go back to what we were saying, so create the womb healing circle, purify and fast together. In reality, no one wants to be a bitch. The one acting out in her unnatural state is actually suffering from unbearable mental, emotional, and spiritual pain. She's calling out for help, so won't you give a sister your hand? For as the two seemingly opposed women come together and strive to be sisters, the highest degree of healing can be exchanged. So that part I think is very important to note, that it is important to reach out, because even just you reaching out, even if they deny you or you're not their cup of tea or whatever, it is important to show that path, to show the way, and this can inspire them for later on, or to find their own way of doing things, just to know that somebody cared and that somebody was offering alternatives and wanted them to know about them. So she said, finally, let's just stop calling ourselves bitches. Instead, let's start calling ourselves hurt women, wounded women, women in need of healing. So we're almost done, but she does have a sister-to-sister dialogue of journal work. You're my sister and I forgive you, that I'm not going to read the whole thing of, but she does really have a beautiful message about. So she says to do a journal dialogue between a sister friend and yourself. You might start by asking if she's willing to speak with you from her highest self. Write about how you feel about your relationship. Try not to be accusing, shaming, blaming. There should be no victims here, just relationships that are in need of purification. So write honestly about the challenges in your relationship, how they make you feel. Let her speak then from her perspective, but you're writing it in your journal, and keep going from there. Create a dialogue. So your relationship with your sister friend may not change as a result of this dialogue because she's consciously unaware that it happened, but the transformation came through you because it gave you new insight and understanding about your friend, your relationship together, their point of view, and so therefore your behavior towards them is what is going to change. And so in time, because all these things change when we do, your friend's behavior will slowly begin to change towards you for the better. And so that reminds me of an article I saw recently online that was titled something like, people who think in the third person tend to be more empathetic or do better in certain situations, social situations, because they're able to see other people's needs, see things from other people's point of view a little bit better. And so it's kind of in that way is what you're doing, is just, putting yourself in someone else's view, seeing it all from the outside as though both of you were two characters that have motives, right? And like usually we just see it from our own point of view, our own needs, and fail to see what would drive the other person and work with it in that way. So she has a second journal here, and so it says, sometimes sisters are envious of one another, and that toxic state makes us out of sorts. But when each of us reflects deeply enough into our own golden treasure chest, we see that each has been endowed with blessings that fit her life path, her destiny. So sisters, don't fret, because you got it that way too. Vanessa is all depressed about what she thinks she doesn't have. So she talks to her sister girlfriend. Okay, this one's short. I'm going to go for it. Ruby is blessed to to a greater degree than herself. So she writes a dialogue with Ruby in the journal. Says, Vanessa, sister girlfriend Ruby, you're more beautiful than me. Ruby, according to whose image of beauty? Vanessa, you're educated better than me. Ruby, but Vanessa, you're the one with street smarts and survival skills. Vanessa, you have more material goods than I. Ruby, but sister, you're the one who's truly rich because you're always spirit-filled. Vanessa, you've always had a good man. Ruby, but sister, you were always the one more contented with self. Vanessa, don't concern yourself with the way I've been blessed, because if you reflect, you'll see you've got it that way too, all in your own way. All right, so that is all we're going to do for today's reading. That's all. Hope you stuck for all of that. I will be making the next video and getting it up on Monday since I'm not sick. And thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. And definitely go to patreon.com/Sacred Sister Circle and donate $1 if you enjoyed this Sister Circle or any of the other previous ones that you have seen. May your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads.